Okay, we are live. We are live. We are live. My name is Narayanan.
Hey everyone, this is Shiva here.
Hi, this is Ravi Shankar.
People who doesn't know me, this is Rafiq Syed. Cloud adoption is definitely going to go high.
So they have planned 5 keynotes this year. We can see that they are going all guns blazed, and they opened the session with this macOS instances.
This is one of the exciting moments most of the IT guys in the cloud world looking forward for.
Solutions that really meets the key needs of the customers in the coming years.
Yeah, there are many other clouds also. I don't want to be biased only with AWS, but definitely yes. This is for the AWS today. Yeah.
Andy himself, he took a jab at Microsoft.
And the advantage is it's global, right? It's not happening in a particular region. They are able to provide it globally, and they are able to cover 3 simultaneous time zones at the same time, repeating the sessions again and again. And then there are also sessions available video on demand. You can go back and watch.
I remember we being in the Mumbai Re-Invent a couple of years back, and we had to choose between the tracks, and we divided ourselves that you go to this track, I'll go to the other track, but this is the much better at convenience. We can watch the tracks.
Except that we are missing Vegas and Mumbai for a reason, definitely, yes.
Yes. Yeah. Babelfish is going to be the killer for Microsoft for sure.
Whether AWS, they themselves have used AWS DevOps Guru to predict the last week's outage. I mean, they had this Kinesis outage, right?
And talking about the other interesting, how can such session happen without talking about Kubernetes, right?
So security and network is one thing which is always should be upgraded. So
when we say serverless in AWS, I think all of us will immediately remember Lambda, but they have a suite of services available in AWS to support this overall serverless architecture.
And the one thing that caught my eyes was they are considering to replace Docker runtime with Containerd.
Talking about storage, how can we finish the session without an S3 update, right? I mean,
so the FinOps aspect of something we can go through in the AWS Re-Invent also definitely one thing to monitor how cost we can optimize and how is it helping the entire operations world, right? Yeah, that's definitely a key takeaways.
When they first introduced this serverless in 2018 Re-Invent, I mean, people were going like crazy about this serverless thing.
Welcome everyone to the Chennai Tech Radar. It's one of the virtual conference exactly after 1 year we started. We have close to 700 plus people now. Very happy to see the growth.
Welcome everyone who is joining us live in this video, and also for the people who will be watching it later. The video is available in YouTube, and the same link can be shared across. Around more than 50 tracks happening, and then there are like thousands of sessions. Picked up the key things, our favorite things, and we are just trying to summarize it here.
So the first one, which we are going to obviously discuss, is Andy Jassy's keynote. The main focus were on compute and storage, and now on your screen you can see we are going to discuss few points about compute. The first thing that excited most people about the Andy Jassy's keynote on compute is the launch of macOS instances for EC2. Amazon's homegrown Graviton 2. It's like they are building their own ARM processor, and I guess that's the trend of 2020, right?
Amazon EKS Anywhere is a preview feature that's available in 2021, but then a lot of excitements around. Think of a hybrid organization where people are running different distros and masked versions of Kubernetes across off-prem and on-prem data center. How can you ease the administration pains of having the same versions, or looking at single point of vulnerability fixing rather than looking at different distros, right? It's much a relief that EKS Anywhere is given to us. One good thing about EKS Anywhere is like yes, this is my favorite, of course. I've been always a fan of Kubernetes GUIs, the EKS console, and think of managing your EKS Anywhere sitting in your data center through an AWS console that's there, which is the EKS console, right? It gives a lot of advantages there. We'll touch base upon that. But what powers EKS Anywhere is the EKS-D or EKS distro. Amazon has come out, said that we are kind of having this as an open source now. Take it, go install in your data centers, run the Kubernetes versions that's tried, tested, and built for huge workloads that millions of other customers are using around the world, right? So that gives a big relief. So this is a story stitched together. Basically, the EKS distro with EKS supported anywhere plus the console view of it, right? So what a great story it is.
And we have this Habana Gaudi based EC2 instances that is purely custom built for machine learning. We always get built to the nearest 100 milliseconds. Now AWS has come to that as well, and you can see that now we can have 1 millisecond billing for Lambda as well, and which Andy claimed that it lowers the cost up to 70%. About next, last but not the least in compute, that is Proton. It's an fully managed deployment service where like developers have these templates or something. Yes, almost similar to the CloudFormation templates, where they can just go in and pass variables, like if it is a test environment or if it is a QA environment or if it is a pre-production or something. And just they can click the parameters, and the CloudFormation templates takes care of provisioning those resources and everything, such that all this comes under as a single stack. It's more that, and with Proton we can use this for containers and AWS Fargate as well. So that is an added advantage. Yeah. So
I think talking about Proton, the three key things that AWS has put together as benefits of using it is like setting guardrails, which means it's like a template-based approach. We have a working pre-tested stack and a template that's available, and that's what they mean actually. And the rest of the two things that AWS publishes here is always that we talk about in the DevOps world is best practices and developer productivity, right? So just that guardrail and how does open community help towards that, right? Is what is my interest with Proton here.
So in storage, as far as EC2 is concerned, we could see now they have introduced GP3 volumes, which is an next generation of GP2. And we could see IO2 Block Express. And they claim it's IO2 is nothing but it's more or less like related to our SSD disks, where we can see high performance, high throughput, and it to be 40% to 70% faster than the existing current generation storage options that we have for EC2.
Yeah, here is my favorite takeaway of the GP3 volume actually. So whenever we kind of provision IOPS versus the capacity, GP2 always gave the option of choosing a higher capacity and then a higher IOPS. But then with GP3, the flexibility of choosing capacity and IOPS are independent, as they say in the announcement. Looking forward for using these kinds of volumes. And then I look at a lot of other optimizations like cost with GP3 volume and the maximum capacity. These are some things that I look at GP3 volume. Always a storage fan of AWS.
But running database on EC2 instances and taking care of that as well, it's an like pain. And coming back to this serverless thing, it's AWS everything. So they take care of OS patching and constantly upgrading everything, so that all we have to do is maintain the data that is stored in the database and see whether it is like processing fine or not. So with this serverless, now they have introduced the serverless V2, which has like multi-AZ support, read replicas, parallel query, and everything. And they extensively brought this Babelfish for PostgreSQL. So just a word about that. So it's like a database migration service where you can import your on-prem or database that's running on EC2 into Postgres. So I would say, and to be frank, they even made it an open source project, which is supposed to be available in GitHub from 2021.
Yeah, Babelfish is going to be the killer for Microsoft for sure.
Andy himself, he took a jab at Microsoft. I mean, that Microsoft, they were forcing their customers to buy that licenses, and it is only, supposed to be helping only the Microsoft SQL servers that are running on Azure, not the other cloud providers. So it's like AWS was countering their move with this Babelfish, actually.
Yes.
Talking about storage, how can we finish the session without an S3 update, right? I mean, S3 started with something called as an eventual consistency, but then strong read after write consistency. is what Amazon claims in this thing, right? So it's
Another one thing, if you notice in the S3, right, that multi-region replication, they made it easier now. So 2 destinations you can push at one shot.
So yeah, to sum it up, Andy Jesse's keynotes and this keynote session, like I said, there were actually about Amazon Connect, which is helps in this call center kind of thing and everything. And in Andy Jesse's keynote itself, we saw some of the partners who are using AWS, like JP Morgan Chase or this new Boom, who are going to be venturing into the air travel with the supersonic flights or everything. They had some couple of sessions and they were explaining how AWS helped them to achieve their targets and everything. And like I said, machine learning, Andy did touch it. I mean, he announced a few new things in the pipeline for AWS SageMaker and TensorFlow and everything, but he saved the best for Swami, who is going to take this a dedicated machine learning keynote, which is supposed to start this Tuesday.
Serverless is the key topic, right? When we say serverless in AWS, I think all of us will immediately remember Lambda, and then but they have a suite of services available in AWS to support this overall serverless architecture. Going through these serverless related sessions, and I was really interested in these 3 sessions that I thought could be very interesting to discuss. The whole organization run just using Lambdas and other serverless resources. So I will start about the Lego. The point is this: so they just use Lambda, Event Bridge. If you see everywhere, it's just Lambda, Event Bridge, Amazon SCS, and then a normal storage in DynamoDB. And then they were able to put this whole thing together. And it's all serverless, meaning only when there is an email coming in from a customer for that request, these Lambdas are getting triggered. If there is no customer, if there is no out of stock, for example, for the popular products, then these Lambdas are never used and they don't have to pay anything. That's from Lego, right? The key takeaways are these, right? Serverless is everywhere. It's available everywhere. They are using it everywhere in the whole architecture, even for your product placement, payment, everywhere they are using just Lambdas and then related serverless components. And they were able to run a huge organization like Lego with just that. So it's something that we might have to keep in our back of our head when we are deciding new solutions, right? And then Event Bridge, and also they were also expanding about step functions. So each of these small boxes that we are talking about, whether the product ability is there or not, even within the product status check, it's actually a status state diagram, right? So it's like a small flow diagram that is there that actually does the actual activity. It's not a single small program. It's a flow, and that flow they are using step function. So step function is more like for orchestrating, and Event Bridge is for choreographing, right? And this is how Lego was able to pull out everything available as serverless in AWS, and they are actually running their business in AWS. So this was very, very interesting to me, understanding how these big players are really architecting things in AWS and then utilizing things that are coming in as it is. Like even which was introduced a year and a half back, and then they were able to immediately pull it in and then start using it.
I think we can build a enterprise architecture can be only around serverless, like Lego is a right example now. It's the same case, but CloudGuru also claims saying that they use the entire thing as a serverless.
And thinking of a paradox here, right? I mean, just having container workloads on Lambda itself is another paradox to relate to this use case, definitely, right? So, and also another thing that pops up my mind is going from headless service to totally serverless, right? So that's also something that I can see.
Yeah, the next thing is around the application integration patterns. It was presented by Dirk. And it was an amazing session. To be frank, I would really request everybody to go check the real session that he presented. The way he presented, he was funny, and he himself agreed his accent is also funny. But the way he presented, it's not something very new to everyone, right? But the way it is presented, and it's important for people who are picking up using message channels. And he told messaging, and I think it's a very valid point. Like if there is any huge organization or any huge distributed system or any huge architecture they have seen, if you have not seen a messaging component in that, it means it's a bug. So it's there everywhere. Without a messaging channel, then because that's the basis for your asynchronous communications, right? The other side is the topic, right? So one queue is point to point, meaning a sender sends to a receiver. Even if you had multiple receivers, only one message will only reach one receiver, right? But in a topic, multiple receivers can subscribe to that. So SNS helps in PubSub, right? And then our topics, and then SQS helps in queue. So there are two different things that we need to remember when it comes to messaging in AWS. And as these are like managed services, then you not even worry about the infrastructure, the scaling of it, right? Just all triggered using APIs. So the takeaways, right? Important for any architecture is divide and conquer, which in other words, for now we can say it's microservices. Of course, there are multiple ways to do it. The other one is loose coupling, which is mostly used using asynchronous messages. Basically, end of day, loose coupling is better than the lousy coupling. Lousy coupling is nothing but the tight coupling, he says, right? When you have point-to-point communication, so he says loose coupling is better than lousy coupling is the summary. I won't get into details, but again, this session was by Danilo, an AWS speaker himself, and then he was explaining about how Lambda can be used for data sciences and analyzing the huge data, right? Or even training your models if you're talking about machine learning using AWS Lambda, right? One last thing he added is AWS Lambda has now started supporting Amazon EFS. One problem is AWS Lambda in the past is that you need to zip everything, all the code that you want into a single zip. People who are using Lambda will know that pain. Then you deploy it and that zip is getting executed. Now, if you want more number of modules for your application, right? The bigger the zip is, and then it's sometimes there's a limit of how much how huge this can be. So basically, what now it does is you'll be able to attach an EFS endpoint or file system to your Lambda function, right? So that way, if for example, if you have specifically data sciences related modules in a particular folder, this you can use an EC2 instance, connect your EFS, download all the modules that you want in that folder, and then connect this EFS file system to Lambda, and then Lambda will be use those modules on the fly.
At the same time, in the Lambda, we all saw the pain of memory, right? When you invoke a Lambda, it was at 2 GB. Now they moved it to 10 GB. That's going to give a big relief for the heavy Lambda functions, but people have to be careful about the pricing. It doesn't come free. So
the CodeGuru that Amazon has, it's not definitely new announcement in this reInvent. CodeGuru has a reviewer and a profiler to start with, and this reviewer and profiler reviewer is something that checks about code quality, catch code problems before they go into production, fix vulnerabilities, kind of a thing. And then code profiler is something that after you deploy the code, what happens to my CPU, to my memory, etc. Right? This is a short of what CodeGuru is. The good news for the coders is till now. The CodeGuru was supporting Java. Now 3.6 version of Python till 3.9 version of Python. CodeGuru is supporting. So good news for the Python programmers there.
One more thing, the guru looks like a good word being picked up by AWS. CodeGuru last time. This time a new service been introduced as a DevOps Guru. Yeah. That's a new service, as many of you, definitely something we need to try as people working on AWS. This is like, they learned a lot from the Amazon.com. That learning they converted as something people can use it out of the box. We don't need to have a lot of ML kind of skills to analyze it. So if you have an account, you can run your DevOps Guru. That's going to look at one of the pillars of the well-architected AWS, right? The operations excellency. They are playing a very good role with the DevOps gurus, and you can go create this service and analyze your account based on the resources you want to analyze. They will come with the ML data, which they already have it for Amazon.com for ages. That they are going to tell us that the predictability, if there is any error rating issue or any other issue happening, they are going to not only detect it, but also going to give a recommendation. This is something going to be very good, because nobody wants a downtime, right? This is like predicting a downtime even before something can happen. This is definitely one service I feel is going to change the dynamics of the operations world, because we tried to get similar kind of information from different metrics altogether. Now, with the click of a button, you can get this. It's still in the preview mode, because when I was looking at the services, I didn't still find it in the services. But if you go with the link given by AWS in the documentation, I think we can still navigate to that. That looks like another good one.
Yep,
actually, whether AWS, they themselves have used AWS DevOps Guru to predict the last week's outage. I mean, they had this Kinesis outage, right? Now, let's switch to containers. I guess it's the most favorite part, or like favorite subject for all of us here. And I found this session where they were suggesting, like the best practices for ACS. And I just pointed few, maybe there are even more. Avoid using secrets in environment variables. Instead, we can put it in AWS Secrets Manager or something, and then we can call that ARN, and then like fetch the secrets, whatever that is stored in Secrets Manager. And obviously IAM roles. So it's like they were stressing out this point of like isolating this task level or EC2 level roles and anything. And we can see, like always, they recommend to enable that scan on push settings on ECR, so that whatever the image that is being built and pushed to ECR, like it gets scanned immediately for any vulnerabilities. And obviously, regular audit of API calls using CloudTrail, I guess, which we most commonly use CloudTrail to see what are all the best practices that we could see.
They were giving 3 connected models to EKS Anywhere, about fully connected, partially connected, as well as disconnected. Disconnected is like you run your instance, we give you a distribution here, and then some point later you can plug into it. Partially connected is whenever we have a schedule, we can go update. A lot of organizations still go with the scheduled way of change management, and then in the cloud native world, connected anywhere, right? Just go monitor my cluster, get the statistics out of it, tell me what is happening, what is vulnerable, etc. That's the totally connected model.
The next 2 slides, it's more or less like similar, the CoPilot CLI, and next you can find Proton. Like I said, AWS are, very, what you could say, like very committed to bringing that infrastructure automation, so that developers, they can do everything in just a single click of that, and out exclusively for containers. So it's just with a single command of CLI, you can get your environment up and running, and you can perform all your tasks there. So that's the same way in Proton. If you move to the next slide, in Proton, it's more or less like it gives a GUI for us, like what we can going to deploy, and how it is we can deploy it in different environments, like lower environments and production. And just we are speaking about Lambda. Again, we have another serverless concept here in containers, that is Fargate. So we know Fargate, it's serverless for containers. And now we have this Fargate spot where they claim we can reduce the unused capacity, and we can save the cost up to 70% less. That's a huge amount considering the standard Fargate. And we also definitely get a 2 minutes warning, like when you are going to lose your spot instance. It's like easy to spot, but again, for container spot. In this Re-Invent, they have introduced for logging for EKS on Fargate as well. So as you can see, Fluent Bit, it's just a log forwarder container which is running, which just collects the logs from the running containers, and then it forwards it to, you can see, CloudWatch, S3 or Elasticsearch. And the one thing that caught my eyes was they are considering to replace Docker runtime with Containerd.
This Docker stream is more like an adapter to support Docker, because Docker is not just the runtime. Docker is an application by itself. It has a huge registry, it has its own GUI, it has its own CLI and stuff like that. So Kubernetes was maintaining Docker stream so far to make Docker runtime Docker runtime to be supported by Kubernetes. But now they have mentioned that they will not be supporting it anymore. But I read a recent article that Docker is going to take over that Docker stream maintenance. So probably it's going to be there. for some more time. But yeah, I think just that news might make lots of people move towards containering. And containering is again anyway basic runtime under Docker, so it's no different. Just that the whole Docker will not be there, but every runtime again, if somebody is really panicking about it, if that is going to get replaced, it's not going to make any difference for the users. Every container runtime will have the same specifications, so it will be able to push registries, images, and everything. So there is no change anybody for end users, but it's only that the runtime that is installed in those worker nodes. If you're not using managed nodes, or if you're not using Fargate, you might have to install it yourself, these runtimes. And I think only one thing I read is about Docker and Docker pattern. If you're using like Docker socks, then probably you should look out to have for a replacement, because not all runtimes have that concept, but which is also not very personally I don't see it's a very popularly used concept, but yeah, there are places where people are using it. The next thing that I wanted to talk about was about the Verizon's journey, right? Which is very interesting as well. So people who are trying to move from a monolith to a microservice architecture, the way they do it, but one they want to move to cloud at the same time. When they were doing this migration, the whole migration they actually did using Canary. The summary of challenges that they faced is the upskilling the team. Of course, they are moving to microservices, which is now suddenly containers, Kubernetes, EKS, eksctl, managed nodes, the different way of logging, monitoring, everything comes in. And then they have to upskill the team. They told it's a very big challenge, and then they were suggesting everybody should start with upskilling the team even before starting the migration to make it even more smooth. The second one is about optimizing the application for containers, right? We also discussed in our previous videos in our channel about the production disruption handling, where we talked about what is the 12 factors about container which you have to follow as the standard, so that these are like key factors that you can follow. That way you can make sure the application is really container. So it's not that you just take a small chunk, write a small program and put it inside a container. So that's not the right way of doing it. So there are some standards to follow. That way it will be easier. It's not that you cannot do it. The more you follow the standard, it will be easier for you to really manage that container, because containers comes with its own complexities, right? The third one is about automatically building and deploying. Of course, you should have an automation build and deployment, which is a no-brainer. If you are going to use microservices, never even dream of deploying it manually, because it's going to soon grow into thousands, 10,000s of containers, right? Of course, they specifically tuned cluster, node, and pod DNS to suit their needs. And of course, these configurations are not. It all depends on the organization, how their DNS setup is, right? And what kind of nodes and what kind of workloads they are running. It all depends on that. So, but still, it's a thing to remember. Finally, not to forget about the monitoring and logging, which is very key. With so many microservices or so many containers running around, you should have some easy way to monitor and log, and then to find a correlation between all those calls that are happening, which is very important. If you are already running microservices, or containers, you know what I'm talking about. If not, I think it's better to know about it before we even start the journey around containers. That's how. That's again a very interesting topic from Verizon. So they were about their journey. Verizon is a huge organization, so they moving towards containers and EKS is something that everybody should look through, because I know lots of legacy organizations in different domains is looking for it. So I think it's a very good talk around it.
So without any delay, I'll start with the networking and security, the identity and access management. So we got the network firewall, AWS network firewall. So far we have AWS WAF, and then the Shield. Then they come up with Firewall Manager. Now they come up with AWS Network Firewall. So the case is gone now. No need to get some product, security product in particular. People can explore about the network firewalls. They can restrict the IPs, and they can write the security policies around it, and they can enable it at the organization level. So there is some restrictions, like for example, whenever AWS is going to release any new services, they want the customer to upgrade themselves. So without upgrading, they can't get the new fruit. So they have to upgrade themselves so that they can use the newest feature. So likewise, Firewall Manager is going to help in that way. Like we need to upgrade it to Transit Gateway to have it efficiently. So that's where they're updating the services. So AWS Transit Gateway need to be there, and Resource Access Manager has to be there. These are all the prerequisites for the AWS Network Firewall. So at the AWS Network Firewall, already it is in the console. You can view it on the VPC. So you can you can view your security rules, security groups, and you can apply the rules for specific to VPC. So you can deploy different models together. So various deployment models are available for the firewalls. So you can have it in a centralized deployment model, and then you can split across your VPC. So in that way, different deployment modes are supported. And so far, like east-west traffic insertion is always a pain point. Like we know, like we are passing the traffic via one firewall endpoint, and we can see whatever the things are happening through the firewall. Now, what is happening within my VPC? For example, VPC A to B is communicating themselves, but I just want to know from the security audit point of view what exactly is happening. So you can view, you can inspect using the network firewall. So that is some key things they have introduced, and you can also have it in the AWS organization level. So you can control it one point as well. So this is one thing they brought with the AWS Network Firewall deployment. So the IAM Access Analyzer is the one menu they have introduced under IAM. You can see it. So with that, we can see whether wider permission is being given to this resource. Is there wider permission given to the network? For example, already AWS network role has been defined under the IAM. So whether the network IAM role requires EC2 permission or not. So this is something we need to check. Already he's been assigned with the AWS network and role, but he's having other services roles. So we need to fine tune that. And also the IAM Access Analyzer, one more thing which is giving is like this particular resource has been accessed last 10 days before, or last 110 days before. So we can understand those logs, and we can fine tune our S3 IAM permissions, and we can fine tune our IAM roles and policies. Depends on that. They are combining with the right expertise in their product. Like for example, if you take security, again they are not going with the firewall alone. They are getting into the SIEM level, and then they are particularly getting into Kubernetes security level. So they understand the security market very well.
This is an interesting one from Nationwide, who is part of insurance organization like more than a century now. It's where they're actually exposing their open data for others to use as well. So they were the key requirements that they had in mind is they had different business units, and they don't want different business units data to stay in other unit, right? They want at least part of the data to be shared across. So there was a huge argument, like any other organization, whether the data should be centrally managed or the data should be distributed. Then if it's distributed, how will make a correlation between this data, and if you need to make any combined reports and things like that. And then they figured a way to do it, and this is the solution they have put in place, right? I would like to just summarize the topics that we have seen. I would also update the description with the links of the slides and of course the headings that we talked about. I'll try to also provide timelines so that people can go to a particular part of the video and then easily view it. So who is watching live, do share it across, and who is going to watch it offline, make sure that you are subscribed, and if you're not already part of our channel. So in summary of what we have done so far, I think we started with the keynotes. We moved towards serverless, which was like the key thing, and then we also touched base around containers. We talked about the networking security patterns. We talked about microservices architectures and patterns, and then we ended with data lake at the end. So these are we have summarized, and this covers most of the domain that was covered in this 1 week's AWS session. But again, don't underestimate, it's 1 week, but it was like parallel sessions going on across 50 tracks. It was very interesting to have different perspectives around different things that we are putting in place. I hope everybody will like it, like watching this.
Just for people who are very new to AWS, right? AWS almost made most of the certifications free. If you log in there, there's a certification section there. They kept most of the certification as a free thing. I think those who want to use it, I think should use it now.
Channel, we already published two certification related videos. CA certification, Certified Kubernetes Administrator, and also another video around Terraform Associate, which Ravi here actually presented. You must go and check if you're going to take certifications, any of these two certifications. And don't miss, coming up is GCP certifications, tips and tricks, and also about the exam structure from Rajesh, who is here. It will be mostly published during this month. So subscribe to the channel so that you will get the notification when we publish it. Thanks for being here. For all the people who are watching, people who will be watching, and for the people who were discussing along with me sitting in front of me.